I just wanted to share a couple of things, and especially for those that are starting and then those that have been in business. For your information, I am by profession an accountant. I have received my degree in business and accounting from NAIT. I have completed all of my CMA courses, so I clearly understand the business world. I also have much training in the traditional knowledge, in the traditional aspect. I choose to follow that now. I choose to do what I think is important as well to help as many people as I can in a manner that would help them understand where they're at and how they can walk in either world or in both worlds. I think the key is to be able to walk in both worlds with an understanding that you never forget who you are, with an understanding that we will enhance whatever it is that we have as gifts. If we're artists and we sell our, and I'm not calling them artifacts anymore, if we sell our work, our magnificent work, then we want to make sure that we sell it with the intent that whoever is getting it is going to get it with a lot of our own love, with a lot of our own gifts in it. When I make, and I'm a cradle board maker, and I sew as well as I do all of these things, but my gift is the cradle boards. So when I make them, and on occasion, if I get an order to make the cradle boards, I will do it. I don't do it regularly, but when the request is made, then I feel obligated to do it. So when I do that, then I smudge, I say my prayer, and I allow all of those energies to go into that, and good energies. And then I think about this baby that I'm making it for. I think about the family that I'm making it for. I think about the siblings, if there's any, or the grandparents or the parents. I think about that entire unit that this baby has come in to bless. And I ask that more blessings be given. And so whatever it is you're doing, the more you give from yourself, from your heart, from your mind, from your knowledge, from your education, from your training, the more you give, the more you're going to receive. It's going to be tenfold. That philosophy is true. The more you give, the more you receive. So I just wanted to share that with you. So when this, and I just want to share one of the cradle boards that I made for one young mom. She put her baby in the cradle board at the age of 3 months, 4 months. She had her baby in that cradle board till the baby was 9 months. And then she messaged me and she said, my baby won't sleep anywhere else except in a cradle board. Can you make a bigger one? And I know that when we do it in that way, we provide, and for me, that's just confirmation that what I've done and how I've done it is right. And the baby is getting everything it can to help this baby live and carry on in their journey, wherever that journey may go. So I just wanted to share that. The other thing that I wanted to share that I think is important is when I was taking business and I was getting my degree at NAIT, I was the only Indigenous person. I was the oldest one. I was a woman, and plus I was Indigenous. And I was, and on top of that, now I was even more traditional. I was traditional. So I didn't fit in any of the aspects. And so when I was having to provide presentations on any of those subjects that I took, on accounting or on auditing or in taxation, any of those, I wanted to make sure that I was able to provide those business students, specifically those students, although the instructors, I think it would be important for them to know, but more importantly, the students, on who we were as Indigenous people and how we relate and what we can do and what is important in terms of giving information from a business perspective. And so the one that I used as an example was financial statements. And I said, the language that's used is different. And so what we have to do is we have to figure out a way to communicate. At the time, I thought it was just the English and the communication of English, but it's more important. It's the language. It's understanding the language and being able to understand one another in order to be able to give your message, in order to be able to sell your product, in order to be able to write your proposal. That language is so important, and it's more important that we understand where we're coming from and then put it in a manner that is giving us the expression of who we are. And if it's artwork, we have to do the same thing. We have to express that in a way that this is who I am. It's not what I'm thinking you're thinking I am. It's what I'm telling you I am. So I just wanted to share those two little things, because I think it's important when you're going out in a market. And then just the one other thing that I want in terms of the business world and working, know your limits, know what you can do. If you're an artist, and as I was, we did Cookum Shack. It was a concession that we ran on powwows. I didn't do the ordering and I didn't do the running of the business, and I didn't do that. You know what I was good at? I was good at making bannock. And I made the bannock. And I made the bannock in the same manner as I'm talking about. I put my love in there. I put all my intention in there. I made sure that my energies were good. And I guarantee you, people were coming back to get the bannock. And I didn't worry about whether or not we had enough sour cream. I didn't worry about whether or not we had enough plates. I had someone else take care of that, because that's what they were good at. That's what they knew they had to do. So if you were working with people, know their strengths and capitalize on it. And that's what I did with my niece and my nephew. My nephew, he was part of the business, but he's the businessman. He's the one that got us the concession. He's the one that made the deal. My niece, she's the marketing person. She's the one that ran out and got all the supplies. She made sure we got this. She's the one that did the advertising. She did all that. And I made the banner. And that's all I did. And then at the end of the day, because I'm so industrious, I would take down the concession and I would go set it up on the next one. So we had this system going, and it worked very well. I'm not doing it anymore because, of course, I'm getting older, and standing there for 14, 15 hours a day is just really taxing on the body. So plus I want to do other things. So I just wanted to share those things about, I think, it's important when you're going out there and to remind yourself that the people are coming to see you. This is our land. We finally get an opportunity to express who we are as Indigenous people. And now you're coming here. We're opening ourselves up to the world. I think it's so important for them to come here where you are, and that this is who we are. And then that they feel that pride and that joy and that connection, because they know you're connected. You're connected to Mother Earth, you're connected to the people, you're connected to everything that is here. You have no choice. It is us, it is ours. This is who we are.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. That's so beautiful. I always love listening to your stories, and yeah, just so inspiring.
Thank you.
Awesome. Right on. All right. Well, again, thank you so much.
Okay.
Curtis and I are gonna share a presentation. Awesome.
You guys have a wonderful day and enjoy your entire day.
Thank you.
You as well. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for your beautiful words and teachings.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Nastimoten.
Umaga.
So
Right.
if anyone has any questions before we start, you can put them in the chat and then we can see if you have any questions. I see if anyone's raising their hand or has any questions. We have the chat there. So we're just going to go into our presentation. Export ready market preparedness, February 16, 2022. Okay. And we had the open chair with Teresa Campio. Thank you, Elder. And now I'll introduce myself and then Kayla will introduce herself. My name is Curtis Cardinal. I'm the membership coordinator. I've been with ITA since last December. It's been great. I love working in tourism. The teepee you see in the background here right now is from Calling Lake at the cultural grounds. We had taken that a few years back here. So I like to use that as my background, and that's where I'm from. I'm a member of Bigstone Cree Nation. Treaty 8 is a territory that I come from, but I also have ancestry in the Pieces band in Lac La Biche, means a little bird band. And I also have relatives and connections with the Métis people, the Métis Nation. I have a lot of relatives who are Métis and ancestry, but I'm also First Nation. So it's kind of like my ancestry is very mixed. My ancestors go all the way back to, you know, to the mountains. Some of them were from the mountains. Some of them were from down east, you know, from the different tribes, like the Ojibwe tribe. And so it's just, I do a lot of research into that. And it's always good to know where the ancestors come from. I was talking with a relative of mine last night about our ancestors and our connections. And it was always good to learn and share that information. So yeah, it's just grateful for that. And I'll introduce Kayla. Kayla.
So, tanse Pepe Square Nitsigasun, Wabisko Chinia. So hello, my English name is Kayla Belrose, and my Cree name's Baby Woman. And I'm originally from Slave Lake in Treaty 8 territory. So I have family ties to Saw Ridge Cree Nation as well as Big Stone Cree Nation. So neighbors with Curtis. And yeah, just grateful to be here this morning. Felt really good hearing Teresa's words. Yeah, from Treaty 8 territory. But yeah, I'm the development coordinator at Indigenous Tourism Alberta. Been with the organization for over a year now, and it's been amazing. So I'm going to pass it back to Curtis and we'll get through our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go to the next slide here and just pull up the next slide. And so I'll read a little bit about what Indigenous Tourism Alberta was incorporated in 2018 as a not-for-profit member-based society. Indigenous Tourism Alberta, ITA, provides leadership in the development and marketing of authentic Indigenous tourism experiences through innovative partnerships. Our mission is to grow and promote authentic, sustainable, and a culturally rich Indigenous tourism experience, showcasing Alberta as a premier Indigenous tourism destination. Our vision is to see the Indigenous peoples of Alberta thrive through a financially sustainable Indigenous tourism economy, sharing culture and stories. Now we'll go on to the next slide. And in the next slide here, we have a map here of all the treaty and the Métis areas of Alberta. So I'm just going to do a little, say, acknowledgement here. So Indigenous Tourism Alberta acknowledges that we are on the traditional territories in Alberta, home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, who have called these territories home from time immemorial. We acknowledge with respect the traditional territories of Treaty 6, 7, 8, 4, and 10. We acknowledge the homelands of the Métis, the 8 Métis settlements, the 6 Métis regions of the Métis Nation of Alberta, and the diverse histories and cultures of all the Indigenous peoples of this province. So in the chat there, if anyone wants to put in the chat, where are you from? And just put in there, see if we have any cousins or anyone from the area wants to put in the chat, any of our attendees, we can have that if anyone wants to say where they're from in Alberta, or what treaty or what tribe or what Métis region they're from, or settlements. So if anyone wants to put that in the chat, and then we can go on to let's go here and see if anyone has posted anything in the chat. If not, we'll go on to the next slide here. Just scrolling down. Okay, workshop outcomes. This is a few of the things that we'll We have Quinn Sunyas. He's Red Pheasant, Cree Nation, Treaty 6. Awesome. Good to have you, Quinn. And so if we have anybody else, we have Matricia is from Treaty 8, Sturgeon Lake, Cree Nation. Aye, hi, she said. And we have Keith. Keith is from Treaty 6 territory, Duck Lake, Patosh, Saskatchewan. Thank you, Keith. Okay. Let's go to the next slide here. Okay, so the next slide is what we want to talk about is workshop outcomes. The benefits of working with travel trade trends and structures, next steps. And we're going to have an ITA member story. So we have Joe Uri with us, and he's from Jasper Tour Company, and he'll be talking later on in the presentation. So we have him. He's also a board member of ITA, and ITA is also having their board meeting, their annual AGM this afternoon. So just sure everyone will be aware of that and be attending, all the members, which is great to see. And so, yeah, we'll go on to the next slide here. Let me just click on the slide. 1 second. Okay, I have a little bit of notes about the slide. Before I read the slide, I'll just kind of mention a few of the notes about travel trade refers to working with international tourism through networks. You must be export ready to work with travel trade. There is an export ready checklist through Travel Alberta, and maybe I'm going to put that into the chat. I'm just going to copy and paste that. So it's 1 second. I'm going to put that into the chat here. I got my notes, and I'm going to put that link for everyone to see. I'm just going to put it in the, before I go into the presentation. There we go. I just put that the link there about export ready, the checklist there into the chat. So if anyone wants to go into the chat, they can click on that and go over that. So now I'll read a little bit about the slide and go into this. What does being export ready mean? It refers to a business that is ready to work through travel trade, distribution, sales, and channels. Second, understand net rate pricings, agree to trade bookings and a cancellation policy, etc. So Kayla, do you have anything you want to add about that before we move on to the next slide about what it means to be export ready or any of those things that we just mentioned?
Well, I think just in connection to even what Teresa was sharing is just being ready to host visitors and connect them to our lands in a good way. Because how many international travelers come to Canada and want to have an authentic Indigenous experience. And so being export ready means, you know, being ready to host those visitors, as well as, you know, taking those trade bookings and, you know, like her Bannock business, having those partnerships where you focus on what you are good at and you create those partnerships. So those people, you know, who work in travel trade are able to do the marketing, are able to get those bookings for your experience so that you don't have to do things that maybe you're not necessarily good at. So it's all about those partnerships. Thanks, Kurt.
Oh, thank you. So we'll go on to the next slide here. And I'm just going to read some of my notes before we go into the presentation of the slide. There's high potential for people wanting to experience Indigenous tourism experience. Due to COVID, we are focusing on domestic travel. However, the demand is higher for international travelers. And so the demand for authentic Indigenous experiences, 1 in 4 domestic travelers, which is huge. That's like 25% of all people within Canada are wanting an authentic Indigenous experience. And the number is even higher when we look at international travelers, which is 1 in 3. So that's huge. That's people from some of our bigger markets, which we'll get into. Like one of the bigger markets, what I thought was interesting was France. You know, France is one of the higher ones, even higher than Germany, of people wanting to come to experience authentic Indigenous experience. So those are some of the statistics that we have. And we can go on to the next slide, and we have a few more statistics that we can share with you. And yep, now we got it here, but I'll read my notes here before we go into the statistics and the chart there. I want to talk about ATIS through Travel Alberta, that 52% use Travel Alberta is so important to have authentic marketing. And 65% of Albertans use Google. The importance of using Google ads and having your website up to date so Google can find it. So that's huge. And I'll just start reading the quote here about Indigenous tourism has an incredible opportunity to re-educate travelers on what constitutes an Indigenous tourism experience. So that's huge. And some of the opportunities and some of the challenges we'll discuss here is that one of the opportunities is, like I had mentioned, that 50% of Albertans would participate in Indigenous owned and operated experiences. Now, some of the challenges is 78% of Albertans haven't heard of Indigenous Tourism Alberta, but we're working every day, and we'll change those stats, and that number will be lower in the future as soon as we do like a lot more advertising, marketing, and people more aware of it in the future. So, and those are some of the challenges, but we can overcome all those challenges. And you know, like some of the misconceptions out there is like 20% of Albertans believe Indigenous tourism only operates on reserve, which is not correct, because we're all over. Like we have off reserve, on reserve, urban, rural, like everywhere. So Indigenous tourism is every part of Alberta and every sector of Alberta's. So 30% of Albertans are most aware of casinos and events when it comes to Indigenous tourism experiences. So, you know, when they think about that, they think about casinos, but that perception is going to begin to change. And those are some of the challenges that we're changing as we speak. So 25% of Albertans say cost is the main factor in not booking Indigenous tourism experience. So those are some of the stats that we have right now. But like I said, things are changing, and those numbers will change in time. And so we'll go on to the next slide here, slide 10. Let's click on that. And so now here, before I go into that, I'm gonna kind of read some of my notes that I wrote down. So prior to COVID-19, tourism stats from Travel Alberta, these are what we have here. International travelers spent almost 3 to 4 times the amount of money per trip compared to domestic travel. That's huge. So Canadian travelers, they ask participants how much they spend in Canada versus international travelers. So we look at the numbers here, like, which is huge. Like the domestic travelers, we had 35 million people within Canada, but they spent 6.7 billion. But you look at United States, which is huge, 941,000 people, and they spent 847 million. So the numbers are just huge, like they're different all over. But it shows that more people, like from international other countries, come to Canada and they spend more money while they're in Canada. So that's why it's always good to target your market towards international, because if you have a business, you want them to come, you want to make more money. So I would like all these markets that are out there, like Germany, China, those are all markets that if you want to tap into, that are huge for potential once things open up more so with travel. And let me just go on to the next slide. Okay, so the next slide here is, I'll just go into my notes here first. So different countries are most interested in experiencing Indigenous cultures than others, which is true. This is research that we conducted in 2010 from Destination Canada prior to COVID with an ITAC. It outlines the different countries with the most demand for coming to Canada to experience Indigenous culture. So the 3 main countries that they found that were huge were France, which is #1, which is amazing. The French just, and then I always thought it'd be Germany because, you know, the Germans have the powwows and stuff like that. And another country, which I thought is Mexico. I always thought the United States would be higher because they're so close, but it's actually Mexico. So in the chat there, I'm going to put this whole PDF about the statistics. I'm going to put it in the chat so you guys will have, all the participants will have that research. You could look at that later on. I'm just going to post that right now. It'll be in the chat. So I just put it there. Awesome. So that was 2019 marketing snapshots with Destination Canada and ITAC. So we'll go on to the next slide here. Okay, the next slide is, let me just go to it for a second. Yeah. So you guys can kind of comment in the chat on this one here. And it's how would hosting international travelers different from hosting domestic travels? Now, some of the notes I have here on this is when we work with international travelers, they have different preferences and needs than Canadian travelers. For example, there may be language barriers, specific travel needs. Example, Japanese travelers like hot water bottles and tea. Examples is Grey Eagle Casino Resort has an Asian style buffet catering to the Asian market. So if anyone has any, like to put their answers into the chat, the question is, how would hosting international travelers differ from hosting domestic travelers? And Kayla, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I'm excited to hear some answers because I know the people in the room have hosted international travelers. So what have you found different in your experience hosting people that are traveling abroad versus, you know, our neighbors here in Alberta or other Canadians from different provinces? All right, let's see what we got in the chat. We got some answers coming in. All right. Australians have a hard time at Jasper Park Lodge because there's no air conditioning. Oh, they need air conditioning. Huh? Oh, okay. Okay. Don't mind my chicken scratch. So yeah, put your answers in for me to put them down on this. All right, Jordan shared cultural differences, things that may be normal to us may be considered rude in other cultures and vice versa. Ah, okay, yes. Cultural differences. So when you're hosting people who, you know, having, you know, those cultural differences, like what are ways that you host them? Like, how is it different? USA tourists don't like to talk politics and Australians don't line up. So I guess what could be a good answer for that? I guess staying neutral, right? Like when you think about, you know, not getting into, you know, someone's booking an experience with you, maybe not, you know, not going to bring up the political situation in their country, right? So staying neutral.
I think it is also because I am, like, with my previous job, was very used to speaking with people from all over the world, and it's kind of like you kind of start to learn the nuances. It's not an easy question to answer with how you deal with that. I think it just comes from experience.
Yes, if anyone else would like to, everyone's unmuted right now. So if anyone wants to join the conversation, please feel free.
So yeah, so you gain experience hosting international visitors, which helps.
Yeah, Curtis,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sure if my internet is acting up right now, but I'm not sure if you guys can hear me, but
we
for
can hear you.
myself, okay, great. One of the things that I really enjoyed about going to university was living in residence. Was not only the social aspect, but meeting people from around the world, because it was a cheap way to meet people from all continents. So for myself, when I have friends from my university days that come back to Canada and come visit, you always want to put your best foot forward, I find, especially with anyone outside the province, to make the most of the opportunity to be an ambassador for Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. That's what I like about hosting international people, because you are, you know, the only ambassador potentially, right? If they never come back, you have been given them kind of the best experience. So you always want to put the best foot forward. You know, I almost put an asterisk beside like international travels for that reason, because you are representing Canada, you're representing our homeland. They may never come back. So you want to leave them with the best memories, the best impression.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share?
I think I would just share that from an international perspective, dealing with people that, you know, here in the Rocky Mountains are just even walking on trail can be really different. I have people who show up with high heels on a plant walk. You just have to have communication needs to be really key we're in an area where you're not going to have access to a washroom sometimes. It's going to be outhouses. You're going to have to dress in layers. And by layers, I mean lots of layers. And I found one of the things that I can carry around with me that's been most popular is just extra blankets. Even in the summer, people don't realize how cold our Alberta evenings get. So just kind of acclimatizing people to what mountain life is really like. It's just a lot of education and communication is really key. So I find with my experiences, when I say to bring a hot drink and layers and maybe a blanket, like if people don't realize they're going to be outside for 2 hours in the winter, their experience can be diminished simply by the fact that they're just too cold.
Thank you, Matricia. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add or share with us today?
Those are all really good tips from your experience. It's going to be very helpful for people who are getting export ready in the future, and we'll refer to this webinar. So really appreciate all of your experience and wisdom and advice. We appreciate it. But yeah, I think that communication is key. So exactly what you're saying there, Matricia, like, communicating the needs, making sure that the visitor will be comfortable, will feel safe, and, prepared for the experience you're offering. So, bringing a blanket or, all of those things. Awesome.
It's also important to note that a lot of international visitors are they don't want to use the data on their phone. So oftentimes you have to make sure that you confirm and or communicate with them a day or two before the experience so that they have time, one, to respond when they're in service or at their hotel, or two, if they're using data, sometimes they won't want to communicate with their phone. So it's important to give them options to get a hold of you by not only using your phone, but your email and even your website.
Awesome. All right, so use email, website, and phone. Perfect. Thank you so much. That's so helpful. All right, I will save this and I'm going to clear it unless there's any last second answers that you want included on this beautiful chicken scratch brainstorm. Awesome. All right, well, I'll clear it and we will keep moving forward, but thank you so much for all your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. So we'll go on to the next slide here, and this is the Curious Adventure. And this slide here is Métis Crossing. These adventurers are found all over the world. So a lot of them love the Indigenous experience and they come from everywhere. And then we'll go on to some of the statistics here from the Curious Adventure. So we'll just go on to the next slide and I'll go into that.
Actually, I have a video to share with y'all. We're gonna just share a quick video just looking at Curious Adventures.
I needed an online store for my jewelry design.
I'm just gonna mute that until we get through the ad. But yeah, this is made by Travel Alberta. So looking at Curious Adventures as our target market.
Experiences draw millions of visitors to our province every year. In many ways, our natural attractions and welcoming people are universally appealing. But to reach our goals, we need to identify the future travelers with the greatest economic potential for all of Team Alberta. Travelers who can be influenced to visit, to spend time and to spend money here. Travelers whose interests and expectations align best with the products and experiences our province has to offer. Our ultimate travelers. How we define these travelers has evolved beyond demographics and psychographics to more fulsome personas that include attitudes towards travel and individual motivators. Through this lens, we've identified two distinct personas that represent our target customers. They're travelers we call curious adventurers and hotspot hunters. When it comes to travel, curious adventurers are, well, just more curious about the places they visit. Rooted in the learner EQ segment, travel for curious adventurers isn't simply about different places. It's about gaining different perspectives on the world. To make the most of their trips, these open-minded travelers immerse themselves in the places they visit. They talk to locals and take their recommendations, hoping to experience the destination like a local. And they leave plenty of time for unplanned encounters and activities that allow them to truly get to know a place. They're drawn to our mountains, cities, and rural locations in all seasons, with a particular interest in summer travel. Everywhere in Alberta has something for curious adventurers to see. They're motivated by discovery, exploration, and rich experiences. And they're thoughtful planners, investing time before they travel to begin building a deeper connection with a place. They're influenced and inspired by objective and editorial sources more than social media. As they make arrangements, they plan for flexibility and seek assurance that a destination has plenty of smaller activities worthy of exploration to complement traditional iconic Alberta draws. When you think about appealing to curious adventurers, keep in mind their need to explore, to connect with a destination, and their open-minded view of the world. Now you know them, let's help them discover Alberta.
All right, awesome. Oops, before I start another video, let's pause that. All right, so back to you, Curtis.
Okay, we talked a little bit about the curious adventurer. I'll just go into a little bit of my notes here. And the curious, I won't read all of the quotes here, but I'll just kind of go over what the Explorer quotients were created by Destination Canada for marketing. The Explorer Quotient Toolkit provides tourism businesses with valuable insight into why and how different people like to travel. So the Explorer Quotients go beyond traditional market research of defining people, looks at deeper at individuals' personal beliefs, social values, and views of the world to learn exactly why different types of travelers seek out different types of travel experiences. So I'll just go over a few of the quotes. Like the video said, the curious adventurer likes to immerse themselves in the place they travel. So leaving time for the unplanned encounter and activities that allow them to truly know a destination. For the curious traveler, it's about getting a different perspective on the world. They are energized by exploring new places, inspired to learn all they can about a destination through its landscape, authentic culture, and the people they meet. Spontaneous and open-minded, they are fueled by a sense of adventure and discovery, knowing that organic moments can be provided their best experiences. They are thoughtful planners, investing time before the trip. They forge deeper connections with the place. So we talked a little bit already about the Explore Quotient connection and the markets and Alberta interest. So I'll just read you one or two quotes here, and then we'll go on to the next slide. So we'll go on to, and it comes down to go away for me. I want to be culturally stimulated. I want to go away learning something. My mind has to be stimulated. So that's kind of like one of the main quotes for the curious adventurer. Like say they come to Métis Crossing, they want to learn all about the Métis culture and the history, whatever they can, and they want to experience the whatever experiences they have there. Say maybe the storytelling or making bannock by, on a fire and doing those type of things, or going on a canoe trip and learning some of the history about the Michif language. That like people coming from different countries, say France or Germany, they want to experience the Métis culture in an authentic way, and then have the interpreters and learn some of the history as they can and be on the land. So that's what the curious adventurers, they want to know as much as they can. And they're willing to research, spend the time, and to come here, which is great. So I'll go on to the next slide, which is slide 15. And I'll talk a little bit on the notes here. Let me just go into slide 15. Okay, and then I'll go into some of the notes before I go into the actual, some of the media habits. Most of this target market uses social media, Facebook, Instagram, all those type of things. Important to marketing through social media. And they look at the local news sources. So this is huge. Getting involved with organizations such as CTV, CBC, Globe and Mail to target this particular market. So they do a lot of research and planning versus traveling. Those are some of the quotes and points of motivation. So it's kind of the overview, like we have some of the statistics here and some of the media habits, which we also already discussed here. But I'll just read one of these quotes here on points of motivation. What motivates them is discoveries, number one, exploration, personal growth, immersion, rich experiences. So that's key. Like I was saying about like Métis crossing, having the rich experiences of the Métis culture, open to possibility. So they're open to doing different things. Say they're going on a canoe ride and they're learning, and all of a sudden they stop somewhere and there's like, say, another trading post or another activity. They're willing to also venture out and go do new things that are unplanned as part of their experience. Planning is part of the trip also, and they're constantly grazing for information. So they always want information. The more you give them, so you give them a history lesson or some of the, you know, like the language tips, or you're telling them about your language or different things of that nature. They love that information, and they love hearing from locals. That's a huge thing. And to know a destination, they need to spend time and to understand it. So that's huge for these people, is to try to understand as much as they can. So on the next slide here, I'll pass it on to Kayla, and you can introduce that slide, and thank you.
Awesome. So I know quite a few of you in the Zoom room have experience with travel trade, but just sharing for information for everyone who tunes into this webinar later on YouTube. Yeah, so what is travel trade? People and companies that sell travel products to visitors, which they have bought from other parties. So travel trade is the distribution network for tourism products for two different target markets. So, you know, those large groups that travel together, as well as smaller groups and or individuals. So seeing, you know, like couples traveling together, for example. A term commonly used in the hospitality and travel industry to describe all intermediaries is there's RTOs, so receptive tour operators. So an example of that is John View and Kentucky Tours. We also have travel agencies. So an example is Meridian Travel. And then we also have tour operators. And then there is online travel agencies, so OTAs. So an example of that is Expedia. So a lot of travelers will use Expedia to book their experiences. All right. And so looking at the two different markets, there's free independent travelers, go by the acronym of FIT. So a smaller number of travelers, fewer than 5 people, or couples who take package tours at a time of their choice. So looking at your experience, like, is your experience more of, you know, a one-on-one conversation with a smaller group, more of an intimate experience? Because a lot of Indigenous tourism experiences throughout Alberta, you know, are really fit for those smaller groups, so that you can have, you know, more discussion and more learning from one another. But then also looking at, you know, there is opportunity as well, especially now with things opening up. You know, right now you don't need a PCR test, I think beginning of March soon, so we'll see how that goes. But travelers, it'll be easier for international travelers to come into Canada. So looking at those group inclusive tours, again, goes by the acronym of GIT. So a travel program with a special fare and specific requirements, often more than 5 people in a group. So what you often think of is those large buses full of people that go through our national parks, stop in Banff and Lake Louise. And so looking at those big bus tours, how can we, you know, partner with maybe different travel agencies in the area and provide those package experiences for groups as well. All right. So just some notes on working with travel trade. So just being aware that you will be signing contractual agreements with partners governed by strict laws that will protect the travelers in many different countries. And then you also need to feel confident that you're able to deliver what you are promoting to travel groups. So, you know, the experience that you're promoting in your marketing, you need to follow through with that and deliver, so that travelers who are coming all the way from like the other side of the world to Canada to, you know, be a part of your experience are going to go home feeling feeling good and feeling like they, got what they invested in within their travel. So offers cost-effective sales and distribution channel for your business because of greater access to national and international markets, and sell your products on your behalf. So, again, I'll use that bannock analogy. Teresa making her bannock, focusing on what she's really good at, and then, having her niece go and do the advertising. It's kind of similar, like you have your business and your offered experience, what you're really good at, like Matricia in this photo, her drumming and singing, really good at sharing that heartfelt experience with visitors who come and want to have that connection to the drum and to Neheo culture, have that connection. So she's focusing on what she's really good at, and then she can partner with different travel agencies. So she doesn't have to worry about, trying to find bookings or advertising and marketing, because she's partnered with someone who's able to do that on her behalf. So important to consider commission structure when working with travel trade, as it covers the cost of their sale efforts. So understanding that, they're going to take a piece of the pie, because that's how they also survive and sustain their business. So I'm just going to share a little bit about the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada National Guidelines. So just using these tools as a guide to guide you towards success in your business. So whether you're visitor ready, market ready, and then finally through the steps you need to follow to work with travel trade to become an export ready business. So as many of you are. So just to get specific, check out the PDF. We're going to put it in the chat for the national guidelines, but at the back there is an Indigenous Tourism Self-Assessment Guide. So it's really helpful depending on what tourism sector you are in. So you can see what you need in order to be a successful export ready business. So whether you're an accommodations business, so having a hotel, motel, teepee, camping, or maybe you're an attraction. So that includes cultural and heritage sites, attractions, or maybe you're a retail store or an artisan, for example. And then food and beverages, if you're in the culinary sector, and then transportation. We have a few members who own, bus and transportation companies. So that's a big part of tourism that people don't often think about. And then outdoor adventure, so guiding, hiking, plant walks, outdoor adventure. And then we have powwows and events. So look at the national guidelines and they'll have a list of everything you need to be export ready. So I'm going to share this beautiful new promotion done by ITAC. So their new slogan is the original. I'm seriously in love with this. And we have our member
It's
feature.
all about sacredness. It's all about paradise. It's all about coming together as one and sharing what you know.
We want people to see our culture. We want people to understand who we are.
From coast to coast, there's so many different Indigenous people, and they really have their own stories to tell.
There's so many different elements that draw you to Indigenous tourism.
It's a culture that more people need to know.
Now is the time to celebrate our connection to this beautiful, vast country.
It's pretty incredible.
It's like the real, true Canadian experience.
I consider myself a protector of this area. We as First Nations people, have that connection with all wildlife.
We're from this land. We're not just a company bringing guests out into our territory. It's deeper for us. We're going after orcas and humpback whales, sea lions, grizzly bears, black bears, wolves. This is the ultimate Canadian safari.
Traveling by canoe, there's no better symbol of responsible ecotourism.
It's a vehicle of getting around, but it's much more than that.
You are connecting with the land, the people that you're traveling with. You get to experience things that you would not experience anywhere else.
When you're shooting archery, to me it's more than a sport, it's almost an art. It really teaches us to be present, and that's a hard thing nowadays.
It's a good way to get everybody involved and learn a little bit about the Indigenous people and our ancestors and how we become one with Mother Earth.
If you want to learn anything about a people, you have to learn their food. True traditional Native cuisine is just eating off the land.
To me, this is Indigenous. It's like I'm honoring my grandmother, like how she cooked. I want the guests to see how the food's prepared firsthand. Experiences like this are very unique and the most genuine. There's just like, I put so much good energy into it, and I just want the world to see it.
I think quite often with Indigenous culture in general, people lump us into one big group. But there's so much variety and so many wonderful flavors from the land and from the sea that we bring to the table. I think it's a small but significant food movement.
I made Montreal history. I'm the only Indigenous restaurant owner in the island of Montreal. And you know what? It took an Indigenous woman to make it happen. And I'm very proud.
More and more people are looking to experience culture in all its forms.
There's so many beautiful parts, you know, the beading, the singing, the dancing, the stories, the legends, the language itself.
There's so much a person can learn. I can talk to you about ceremonies, I can talk to you about the powwows and meditation, vision quests, and so much, you know.
For a long time, the government had outlawed the practice of Indigenous culture, Indigenous language.
When we talk about reconciliation in Canada, Indigenous tourism opens up a platform to bridge that gap together.
I kind of look at it as a responsibility now. Instead of like starting a business just for the sake of starting a business. It's my responsibility to create space for other Indigenous people. This is really emotional.
It's allowing us to build confidence. It's allowing us to get out into our territories. It's allowing us to find who we are again.
Indigenous tourism is about bringing that culture not only to the rest of Canada, but to the rest of the world.
I love that video. So we have to promote it because it's just amazing.
Try this 6-second method tonight.
And we won't do that. Okay, there we go. Awesome. All right. But yeah, I think, you know, just some messages, even in that video, you know, like Scott Eiserhoff, even a member of ITA, just talking about putting that good energy into what he's doing. And naturally, you know, visitors are going to go home with these stories and these experiences. And I think it really does have a ripple effect on the world and, you know, changing perspectives, opening people's minds. And even Matricia's message about reconciliation and tourism is an accessible way for people to learn, you know, authentically from Indigenous people, the originals. So yeah, very grateful for this promotion video because it's done in a way that is, you know, authentic. And that's what's so amazing about having these Indigenous tourism organizations to really, you know, promote and market your story in a good way, for travelers to see that and want to come here and experience that. So, you know, once you get to export ready, you're able to, you know, get more promotion and more marketing out there to, especially with ITAC, you know, the international markets. And so once you're export ready, you're able to have that opportunity to host more international visitors. So that's why we really wanted to put that in this webinar, is to show people, you know, some incentive towards why export ready could be, you know, part of their business goal. You know, if they're still in these development stages, it could be, you know, a 3-year vision plan for them. So again, being export ready is just that involvement with industry partners. Those partnerships are so important. Working with their local destination marketing organization, because there's so many resources around you, you know, depending on what region you're in. If it's working with Explore Edmonton or Tourism Calgary or Tourism Lake Louise or Banff, you know, like getting to know the people around you and creating those relationships so that you can host media, welcome international visitors, and have those partnerships. And then being prepared to market or partner with travel, trade, distribution, sale channels, and then understanding commission and net rate pricing. So if you have questions, please reach out to us at ITA. We're here to help you support your journey into becoming export ready. And then also when you are members of, industry association, have industry partners, they can give you feedback. They can pilot your experience and come at it from, from a visitor perspective and give you feedback on, how you can build your experience to be, even better. So getting that outside feedback is always helpful for anyone. We could always be learning, growing, evolving as a business. And then we'll agree to trade bookings and pricings 18 months in advance with cancellation policies. So making sure you have a cancellation policy in place. As we know, the last 2 years with, operating a tourism business throughout COVID, as we know, there's so many challenges. So having those cancellation policies is important, being flexible with your business. And then detailed domestic and overseas marketing plan, editorial quality images and video. Experience can be adapted to the interest, language, and expectations of whichever international market is targeted. So just gonna let you guys know, Indigenous Tourism Alberta, we have a market preparedness matrix now. So just looking at, the checklist of what you need as a business. So for operations and infrastructure, again, business license, all your permits obtained up to date, daily operations have structure supported by operating procedures. You have accounting and financial management, staff and staff training. That hospitality training is really important. And then site infrastructure, facilities, and equipment are sufficient and safe and maintained. And then you have your visitor and employee safety regulations adhered to. You have an emergency plan, safety equipment and training, making sure you have that emergency first aid or wilderness first aid if you're an outdoor guide. Okay, so also public health requirements adhered to and cleanliness protocols. And then in your product experience, it's delivered on a consistent basis, verified by one or more ways. So, you're going to increase in visitors, clients, or repeat business. Encourage your visitors to leave a review, feedback, because people use Google often for booking experiences. So if they see positive reviews on your experience, they're going to more likely book with you. So there's sufficient demand for business product or service, and it can be verified. And then having that cultural authenticity that's maintained in the design and implementation of the product or experience, and it can be verified. And then you have a contingency plan developed if the business, normal product or service can't be delivered. And then all required equipment, training, and information is provided to visitors to enjoyably, safely partake in product, service, or experience. So as Matrusha said earlier, communication is key to make sure your visitor feels safe and prepared for your experience. Marketing and communication. So you have a set schedule of operating hours and you're contactable 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, either by your website, email, phone, or voicemail, and then you can respond to them within 24 hours. And then you have branded signage that identifies your business, or having that directional informational signage. And then your business has a professional online presence. So you have a website that they're able to book on. So they have their hours and dates of operation, product, service offering, and contact info on your website. And then a medium for facilitating online business transactions. So whether it be online reservations, e-commerce, or any other service applicable to the business. And you have a brand identity, like having a logo. So people know when they see that logo, they know, okay, this is Painted Warriors, for example. And then marketing activities are undertaken using a loose strategy, which is based on market research. And then digital traditional marketing materials have been developed containing product, price, dates, and reasons to visit. And the business requirements to work with international travel trade, including online sales, logistics, management, and refunds, is able to securely book group travel up to 18 months in advance. So that is really important for being export ready. And then these are really important as well for culture and sustainability. We want to strengthen Indigenous culture, strengthen where you come from, that traditional knowledge, empowering Indigenous communities and outcome of business operations. So maybe you're hiring, Indigenous summer student, you know, like different ways to give back. Business incorporates respect and protection of Mother Earth and can be verified. Business produces a positive socioeconomic impacts for Indigenous communities, and this can be verified. Educating visitors, clients about Indigenous cultures and outcome of business operations. And then embracing diversity and inclusion practices are considered and implemented within business, creating that safe space for visitors and your staff. Business can cover operating costs and is ideally financially self-sustaining if there's no plan in place to become so. So again, just want to share more resources for working with travel trade, especially for people who are market ready, working towards being export ready. We have a travel trade webinar that's on YouTube, and the link is in the chat as well. So you can look at that as a resource. And then just, you know, in the future, like attending travel trade conferences like Rendezvous Canada, Canada West Marketplace, and the United States Tour Operator Association. So those are different opportunities for you to, you know, get your business out there with different travel trade agencies if you're just starting out. And then working with industry partners and Indigenous tourism organizations like ITA, shout out, and then also ITAC. But then looking at your local destination marketing organizations like Travel Alberta, Explore Edmonton. And then I just wanted to share this webinar as well from ITAC. So this one's a good one for looking at like SEO. Curtis, if you're able to share a little bit of the notes on that, but really looking at, you know, when people Google your business, that search engine operation. So, so when they search your business, like for example, Jasper Tour Company, you know, it's going to come up right away so that when people are looking to book in within the Jasper area right away, Joe's business comes up on Google. All right, so, but yeah, that's a good 30-minute webinar you can check out. But also, just so you know, our Director of Marketing, Tom Babin, as well as our Director of Development, will be facilitating another Export Ready webinar on February 24th from 2 to 3 p.m. So tune into that for more resources on your Export Ready business. All right, Joe, come back.
I'm down here.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so we can see. There we go. Awesome. Welcome, Joe. We're so excited to have you and all your experience and wisdom to share with everyone on, you know, being an export ready business. So if you want to introduce yourself and share away. Thank you for being here.
She's saying those nice things. It's her way of smudging my butt. Tanse, Tanshe, hello everybody. Joseph Nasiason, the Miotin Nakskatan. Hi, my name's Joe. You can go with Joe. It's more economic than Joseph, and it's very nice to meet you. I live in the Assiniboia, an area of the Assiniboia that's now called Jasper National Park. I'm doing my best to find other names that it had long before anyone showed up who wasn't actually from the back of the turtle. When I find a lot of those names, I'll start referring to a lot of different places by those names. I am living sometimes when I'm on this side of the river, I'm in Treaty 6, sometimes on that side of the river, I'm in Treaty 8, also Region 4 of the Métis Nation, and the unceded and unsurrendered territories of the Secwepemc interior Salish people of British Columbia. And I am a member of the Métis Nation of Alberta. I come from Shots Fossinov, so any of you who watch this webinar at a later date, hey, Kath, nice to put that out there. My business, or our business properly, is called the Jasper Tour Company. I own it with my wife, Patricia. I am this, and she is the brains in the outfit. I just get all the glory, but truth be told, she deserves most of the accolades and the credit. And what we do largely is we take people on experiences in the mountains. It's evolved over the course of time. I've been in the tourist industry now for 30 years, despite looking so youthful and effervescent. Yeah, I'm getting up there. we've been largely centralized around wildlife. It's one of the things that people really want to see when they come to the mountains. And the way we experience the mountains and the wildlife has changed over the course of time. Of course, travelers have changed over the course of the time, and what travelers know and what we're prepared to tell them has changed over the course of time too. So it's an ever evolving thing. But yeah, that's a little bit about me and where I am and what I do, and game on.
So what were some of the challenges and successes of becoming an export-ready Indigenous tourism business?
Yeah, that's a kind of a different question, because like I said, I've been at it for a while. So the challenges and successes that I've experienced, especially with startup or getting closer to export ready, are probably different now than what they were then. COVID has changed the game dramatically. So I would say that let's go to successes, because it's challenging. Come on, people, buckle up. Let's go. But successes came for us in largely remaining boutique, which is essentially saying not biting off more than we can chew, right? Quite often, and the opportunities for us were there, where we saw all these dollars hanging out in front, and as much as I wanted to grab a hold of a lot of that stuff, I had to resist that, because I knew once I started grabbing a hold of everything, that means you have a lot more to deliver. And in order to remain successful, I didn't want to stretch myself that thin, that the experience wasn't worth the value of the dollar that people were putting out there, right? So I would say a lot of our success came from remaining boutique, and to be truthful, to this day we have remained boutique. We're very content with just being the two of us for the most part. We do have staff. Well, we did have staff pre-COVID, but not many, because we want to be the best at what we do and where we do it. And once you start spreading yourself so thin, that becomes very, very complicated. So I guess on the success, and one thing that I would suggest to people that will be a challenge is when things get going again and people are going to be itching to get out there and to go, that those dollars are going to start floating around in front of you. And it's going to be a really challenging time not to try to grab a hold of everything at all at the same time. This doesn't hold true to export ready businesses that are big operations, like under the ITA umbrella. We have some of the Grey Eagle and River Cree and whatnot, but those are outfits that have big teams handling all of the different jobs. From the smaller experience, and some of the people who are in the Zoom room with us are all very excellent at what they do, and they're also boutique experiences, at least in the moment. They can tell and testify to this, that when all the jobs belong to you, you want to be exact and you want to be very measured at what you do, and you want to ultimately know your stuff, which isn't to say know everything, because that's damn well next to impossible. And besides, if you knew everything, it wouldn't be fun anymore. I don't know if that in a roundabout way answered some of that question, but that's what I had to offer.
Thank you, Joe. Awesome. I guess another question is, in your experience of hosting people from all over the world, being in the tourism industry for 30 years, what's some, I guess, words of your wise wisdom or advice you can give to people who are looking at getting to a level where they can start working with travel trade, working with these different organizations that'll help them host more international travelers?
Well, thank you for at least sort of somewhat acknowledging that I'm wise, but I mean, we both know that's not true, right? I think, this may play into the question that you guys had posed earlier on in the webinar about how would hosting international travelers, differ from hosting domestic travelers. And that when you're working with the travel trade, for the most part, previous to COVID, I was working with the travel trade and they were internationals. I wasn't, if I did work with domestics, it was largely people who were on their own and they were, you know, walk-ins type thing. But all the other travel trade clientele I had was from either overseas or from the US. And so what I would suggest is that you know your market. Now, I think you've all heard that before. But I'm not talking about that kind of analytical component that you hear from the consultant firms and what know your market, and they give you all these figures. You guys have popped out some figures on there. And don't get me wrong, that's important stuff. But I mean, know them, know those people, know something of those people, know something of their landscapes, know something of their history, and you know, try to find something that feels like connective tissue between you and them. It just kind of eliminates the stranger thing, right? Suddenly you're not strangers anymore. You're like, oh, dude, you know, and suddenly, hey, you know, maybe you actually went to the shop around the corner from where they live when you were over in their country and you found that connective tissue. Most of my clients, like I said, were from overseas, and most of them were from countries that colonized the back of the turtle. And I have been for some time using my platform in Indigenous tourism as something of a reconciliation piece. But it's a tricky thing if you don't know the people. I mean, we have to keep in mind that these guests are, for the most part that we know of, they're away on a holiday. So I don't want to, especially if I'm talking about people coming from countries like England, for example, that colonized, I don't want to just jump into that with both feet right off the hop, because people are going to feel terrible right away. I mean, it's a natural instinct to feel terrible. But if you can know something of them, find something, some common ground, find something of their heart, then you can bring them in to the conversation in a manner that makes them want to participate in the conversation, to makes them want to keep their feet on your landscape, to learn the things that you want to teach them, right? So yeah, I just think it's really, really important. And I've done that. And to be truthful, I did it for years. I knew in some cases more about the people and where they came from than they seemed to know themselves, and they were astounded. I don't think I went into it at the time with the same mindset. I just found that it was very, very useful in all manner of doing business with these people. It really, really was. It was an excellent thing. So that's probably the single greatest piece of advice. Now, keeping in mind, again, this is a boutique experience. And while the Assiniwachia and all the Pisiskawak, the animals, are what they truly came for, I have to be the best possible host to introduce them to them. I'd rather treat them like I'm introducing family to other family.
Creating relatives. Love that. Right on. I guess, do we have any questions in the chat for Joe? Anyone want to ask anything?
Or even still, because like I said, we've got some great people in the chat room here. If you don't have a question, there are a lot of good people here who can add to what we're talking about, because I know, first of all, I have piggybacked with some of these folks, Matricia in particular, Keith at Talking Rock, you know, partnerships. We're all about partnerships at ITA, and that's not just with different aspects of the travel trade, but even with different businesses. It's great to partner up with different businesses. And I know from my experiences with them that it's a learning experience for me, and there, because everybody in this room anyway, I know knows their stuff. It's great.
Yeah, looking at you know, being a Indigenous tourism business, and how it's unique because you're really recreating, you know, how tourism is perceived compared to mainstream tourism, right? It's different for those partnerships, those relationships, partnering with other businesses. Like, it's it's more of a supportive community, less about, you know, what's your competitive advantage, more of what's your collaborative advantage, you know? So if you have any insights on that, because I think that's a really important piece.
Yeah, I like, you know, in Jasper for a long time, the narrative was, you know, about you know, David Thompson discovering the paths through the mountains, which of course we all in this room here anyway know that he didn't discover a damn thing. He got shown the way by an Indigenous person. He just happened to draw a really damn good map of it. Those were trade routes that were used for thousands and thousands of years, and we were collaborative along those trade routes. I mean, that's how we were. So why, I mean, somewhere along the line, some of that was broken. Those trade routes were severed, and not by us and not intentionally. The trade routes didn't disappear. We just have to fix the road and get back to one another again. We all have something to give to one another. We have something to receive, and I think that's one way of doing it. Like, I've really enjoyed the times that I've done things with other businesses. I don't, like you said, I don't look at it as competition. As a matter of fact, I look at it as a learning experience. I've been out with Jordan on the land and had a time with him to experience what he has to do. And it's just such a great way to continue and to fuel that desire for you to be even better. And once I certainly know what it is that they can do, I have with these trade routes, I have in the past, I know Keith can attest to this. I've had some clients that I have sent down that trade route to him eventually, and they arrived and he treated them in his territory. So I think that is a really crucial part of, you know, that's a reconciliation piece as much as it's an economic piece. Reconciling things between ourselves, you know.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. I was just, last time I was up in Jasper, we went on a tour there, and it was great to go with Joe into the mountains. Last time I was in Jasper, and first time I was like walking up a mountain, actually went on a tour, and we seen a bunch of mountain sheep and mountain goats, and it was just amazing, the whole experiencing nature. Like, they're just everywhere there in Jasper. You have elk and all types of things, and some of the history as well. Like on my Cardinal side, my great ancestor there, Jacques Cardinal. Yeah, Jacques Cardinal. He was actually one of the early people in the 1800s. I believe, I'm not sure it was Hudson Bay Company or the one of those Northwest companies, because there's two companies. I'm not sure which one. He was at a trading post in
Northwest.
Northwest. Okay, yeah, awesome. And he was there in the 1800s in Jasper. So I was like, oh, it's amazing to have that ancestor that lived there with the Assiniwatchee people, the people of the mountains, they say, in Cree way back in the early 1800s, and just that whole history as well. And you know, just to learn all that, it's amazing to go up there to the mountains. It's very. Oh, Kayla's back. Unless Kayla.
I think, you know, that was cool for me to learn that from you as well. You know, it's also it is connective tissue, as I said, and suddenly it brings that history to life. Here I am walking through the Assiniwachia with the blood of that guy who has a pass named after him, you know, has a mountain range named after him, so on and so forth. And now I'm walking with you. How special was that, right?
It's amazing.
Very cool.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, speaking of you know, our traditional trade networks, it's made a good trade with a lovely man from Musqueam who just knocked on my door in the middle of this webinar to shovel my sidewalk. So thanks for your patience and me coming in and out.
You know,
yeah.
Kayla, can I just add one thing in closing for me anyway, and I am sure everyone in the Zoom room here will put their name out there too, but anybody for future reference, if you have questions and haven't had the opportunity, obviously, because you're not going to watch this live, for myself or anybody else in the Zoom room who are already business owners and operators, feel free to reach out to any of us. And, you know, if we can answer your questions, of course, we're going to. but if we can't, we more than likely can point you in the right direction.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate you being here and get to see you in your t-shirt weather.
Oh,
Well,
by the way,
okay,
sorry,
nice.
folks, I am coming to you today from the Seminole territory.
Oh, awesome.
Very
From
nice.
Florida. That's great. And we have a comment from Keith. He said, Tansei Joe, for sharing your insights. P.S. I think it's time to retire the Habs hat for an Oilers hat. LOL.
Nice. Well, with that, go ahead, Joe. You're good.
No, this isn't the place to trash, Keith. This is not the place, because the language gets it gets colorful.
It's gonna have a no comment response. All right. Well, with that, I hope everyone has a really good rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in. And if you have questions in the future, please reach out to us at Indigenous Tourism, info@indigenoustourism.ca. You can email us. You can check out the website to see all of our members. You can find Jasper Tour Company on there. You can find Warrior Women, Mohican Trails, Talking Rock Tours, Drift Out West Fly Fishing. You can find all these businesses who have tuned in today on the website, and you can reach out to them as well. But yeah, we appreciate you all being here and have a beautiful day. So thank you. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. Hi. Bye, everyone.
Bye.